Welcome to the Manchester Young Professionals Mayoral Town Hall. We're so excited to be here tonight. For those of you who don't know, Manchester Young Professionals is a community organization in Manchester that strives to engage professionals under the age of 40 and provides them with engagement, belonging, and connection throughout the community. My name is Carrie Papalato. I currently serve on the Young Leaders Council. And I will play your host this evening. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. You have to give a shameless plug to all the young professionals in the room to really think about getting involved at the city level. I also serve as one of Manchester's fire commissioners, which has been an unbelievable experience. Our fire department is awesome. If you didn't know that, now you do. But check out the city website. Boards and commissions are listed on there. All vacancies are listed there. Get involved. We have so many amazing young professionals in this community, and we should be represented at the city level, and you just have a real opportunity to make a difference. So please go do that. If you don't know where to start, come find me. Happy to talk your ear off about it or connect you with somebody else who has good answers for you. That being said, one of our amazing young professionals is standing right here to the right of me, Stephen Dennis. Who, yes, thank you. It's supposed to be a fun event. Who will be serving as our moderator tonight. Stephen is also on the Young Leaders Council with me, and he is going to tell us a little bit about what we can expect. Stephen.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie, and thanks to all of you in the audience for attending tonight and being engaged and showing up, so give yourselves a round of applause. As Carrie mentioned, I will be tonight's moderator. I'm a transplant to New Hampshire. I graduated from Southern New Hampshire University and am employed there. And as Carrie mentioned, I'm also a member of the Young Leaders Council here in the greater Manchester area. I'm personally excited about tonight because our questions were sourced directly from those of you in the audience, those of you attending, those of you watching at home. With minor tweaks where necessary, and we wanted to make sure the youngest voting bloc in the city had their voices heard. Each candidate tonight will have the opportunity to introduce themselves in about 13 uninterrupted minutes, where we can try and get through as many of the questions as we can. When we're nearing the end of our window, Tom, our timekeeper, everybody give it up for Tom. When we're nearing the end of our window, Tom will flash a card, and then he will flash another card when our time has expired, and then that will allow us an opportunity to introduce our next candidate. This event was designed to hear directly from you and ask questions of our candidates that directly meet your interests and passions. So we ask that you please refrain from applause, cheering, outbursts while our candidates are speaking. Each of us here tonight and those of us watching at home have the ability to enact change and make a positive impact, and that starts with showing up for events like this. So thank you, and we'll get started.
All right. The goal of tonight's event is simply to inform you. As a nonpartisan organization, we are not here to endorse any sort of candidate, anything like that. We're here to provide you information, connect you with the candidates, and explore issues that you, Manchester Young Professionals, have deemed worthy of discussion. We are excited to have all four candidates here tonight: Alderman Kevin Kavanaugh, Jay Rouet, Alderman Will Stewart, and Alderman June Trisciani. Upon arrival, to the four slots, so the candidates do not know what questions they will be asked. And in an effort to get as many of your questions answered tonight, each candidate will be asked different questions. So it won't be an apples to apples comparison, so just so you're prepared for that as well. Fairness is the name of the game, people. So with that, our order is Jay Rouet first, Alderman Will Stewart second, Alderman June Trisciani third, and Alderman Kevin Kavanaugh fourth. So Jay, will you join us, please?
Yep.
Oops, sorry. I have a mic in my hand.
You can turn that on, and you got a water. Awesome. All right. Let's get this thing started. So Jay, what initiatives will you put in place to enhance the overall quality of life for young professionals in terms of entertainment, cultural events, and recreation.
Well, wait, can we pause for 1 second?
Yeah.
Do you want to give your elevator pitch?
Yeah.
No, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I was excited to see that I still make despite my birthday on Monday, I was able to still make that 18 to 39 cutoff. Although I did feel seen, because in the invitation, it said that I could bring my own hairstylist if I wanted to for tonight. And unfortunately, I don't think that's a requisite anymore for me. But yeah, so my name is Jay Ruwe, running for mayor. We've knocked on a little over 12,000 doors at this point, and people continue to tell me that they have serious concerns with the direction that the city is heading. They tell me about homelessness. They talk about crime and keeping criminals off of our streets. We saw an example today where the police were able to arrest the 2 people involved in the shooting yesterday, and those 2 were immediately released on PR bail. That's wrong. Like, these are some of the things that the next mayor needs to fix. But people tell me about their concerns with an increase in taxes or the condition of our schools. But when they talk about it, they always caveat it. They always tell me how much they love our city, how much promise and how much potential that the city of Manchester has. And I feel that too. So my great-great-grandparents, they came here from Montreal back in 1896 and immigrated here in search of a better life. And I came to the city of Manchester in 2006 to work for the mayor and really fell in love with the city. And about 13 or so years ago, I stopped drinking and I got into recovery. And I knew then that I wanted to dedicate my life to public service. And that's exactly. I'm an infantry officer in the Army National Guard. And I went to work for nonprofits where I help people with and homelessness. And in these positions, you have to have a vision, you have to have a plan, and you have to execute. You have to bring people together, focus on the mission, focus on results. And that is how I believe that we should be running the city of Manchester. That is how we should be governing. That would be my approach as the next mayor of the city. And that's why I did a press conference last week on homelessness, because I believe it's incumbent upon us to talk to people about the biggest issues that they have and unveil our plans and the things that we would like to do. And I would say that we don't have to agree on everything, but we do have to agree that the status quo can't continue. So I'm really excited. Thank you all for being here, and looking forward to answering the questions that we have.
Awesome, thank you. Well, let's run that back again.
Yeah.
So, Jay, what initiatives will you put into place in Manchester to enhance the overall quality of life for young professionals, all in the audience, in terms of entertainment, cultural events, and recreational opportunities?
Sure. So I think we have some tremendous talent in our community, and we've seen that with the Economic Development Office. I saw Jody walking around, and with everybody in this room as young professionals. I think when we start to talk about what kind of entertainment options we should have, arts and culture, some of the things that we really should do is listen first. What are the things that you guys want? I think one of the most important but undervalued qualities of leadership is listening. So I think one of the first things that I would want to do is make sure that I'm meeting with groups like this and hearing the kinds of things that you're looking for, and then working with some of our nonprofit community members, people in the Economic Development Office, and finding out how we get to yes, how we bring people together to bring in some of the arts, entertainment, and culture that's going to be critical for the city to grow in the future. I know my wife and I, we love to go downtown, and we love the options that we have at the Rex Theater and Palace, and a host of other opportunities. So that I think it starts with listening. It starts with building those collaborative relationships, working with the professionals in the field to bring more opportunities into the city.
You mentioned homelessness. What do you believe the root cause of homelessness is in Manchester, and how would you proactively address it? Big question.
Sure. So how much time do we have? Yeah. So
talk to Tom.
Yeah. Right. I heard he's going to be a little lenient on the time here, but when you look at the studies, the studies will tell you that roughly 70% of people who are experiencing homelessness have some form of mental health issue or substance use disorder. So I think it starts by getting at the root of some of these problems. If we really truly want to break the cycle of addiction that we have on our streets and get people into a stable life where they're able to get into treatment and get into recovery. So there's a difference between sobriety and recovery. You're in sobriety when you're not drinking anymore. You're in recovery when you're able to build a life around that. So on a broader level, well, how do we get out of the crisis that we are in? I just got a couple pictures walking in here from a business owner who works right near City Hall, and it was needles on the ground, and it was cotton swabs, and we can't have tolerance for any kind of lawlessness or disorder on our streets and that level of dysfunction. It's going to scare people away from the city, and it's problematic for our businesses that are downtown. Now, at the same time, those that want help, those that need help, we should always be able to provide that, like I like to say, a trampoline, not a hammock, but a trampoline into a sustaining life. So what I've talked about when I did my press conference last week was three things. One, enforcement. So ensuring that the police and first responders understand that I, as mayor, would have their backs as they're enforcing the ordinances that are on the books, and strengthening the ordinances where appropriate as well. So banning camping in the city, at the very least doing it in the sensitive areas like our downtown so that our businesses can thrive, so that people feel safe when they come into the city, and then prioritizing our police and first responders in the budget as well. But then I think you can also look at those that want and that need help and that we're able to reach. I think there are several things that we can do. One of the things that I've looked at and talked about is alternate sentencing. So as you are enforcing the ordinances on the books, people are going to receive citations. If they miss a court date, that could be a misdemeanor offense, just for a quality of life issue. And that can make it difficult to get a job. It can make it difficult to get a driver's license or be able to build that recovery life that I was talking about. So alternate sentencing, where you're like a drug court or a veterans court, where you're requiring that they meet certain standards, graduate treatment, get the help that they need, and in lieu of that, the offenses that they've had will no longer be a barrier to success in the future. And then I think too often in the city, coming from the nonprofit background myself, we operate in silos. And we're not doing enough talking, communication, and coordination with the other groups that are on the ground that are doing this. So people are falling through the cracks. So that mayor can play a really important convening role to make sure that that kind of dysfunction is not occurring. And then working with our local, state, and federal partners to also fill gaps in that treatment response. Strengthening the detox gatehouse treatment model. That has been really successful at triaging, stabilizing, and then breaking the cycle and getting people into a successful life. And then the third part that I talk about is affordable housing. So there perhaps could be a question on this later on, but so I apologize if I'm getting ahead of myself on this. But I met with a developer, well, I've met with several developers over the course of the campaign, but I was told the story that he gave me. I sat down at his desk and he said, look, I like what you're talking about on homelessness, addiction, mental health, but here's the problem that I have. And he put a stack of papers in front of me that was like 3 inches thick. And he was trying to get a project approved through the city for affordable housing. And he said, it is so difficult to do it here. And I said, okay, I understand what you're saying. What's the practical impact of what you're telling me? He said, the practical impact is that I'm gonna go build this project in Londonderry. That's a problem for affordable housing. If our ordinances are not being updated, if the planning processes are so difficult to get through, one of the things that he said to me was, the city should be a better partner in this. So instead of saying, these are the things we can't do, say, hey, look, this is not gonna work, but why don't we do this? Like, the private sector can really be incredibly helpful in solving this, but I think the municipality needs to give the tools to the private sector to be successful. So we should look at our tax-deeded properties that we have. We should look at excess parcel of lands. We should work with the nonprofits that are in our community, the faith-based organizations, where's Rick? The faith-based organizations that want to get involved in building housing here. And we should say, here's what we have in the city. Let's build a partnership together to get more affordable housing expeditiously into the city, because, look, I mean, this is going to impact everything. There could be a rent question on here. Rent, supply and demand, right? So the more units that we have in the city, the lower prices should be. So that means we need more affordable units and more units in the city as a whole.
Awesome, thank you. For our next question, Manchester is home to one of the most diverse communities in the state. How will you, as mayor, work to create a diverse and inclusive environment that appeals to young professionals from all backgrounds?
Sure. So thank you so much for the question. Lo aprecio la pregunta. Tenemos una ciudad donde hay gente que se siente abandonado y tenemos que escuchar a todos, incluyo todos, en nuestras conversaciones sobre nuestra ciudad. So we do have a very diverse city. We have a city, though, where people do feel like they are left out. And I think that it's incumbent upon leaders within the city, again, to talk like what I said in my at the very beginning, that before we do anything else, we have to listen. We have to meet people where they are. We have to learn what the concerns of these diverse communities are before we go in and say, here's what I want to do for you. Instead, we should say, hey, let's be a partner in this. We have a very diverse community. What are the needs of your community, and how can the city better facilitate what you are looking for? So I don't think it's a top-down approach. I think it's really a bottom-up approach. It's going into every community that may feel like they're disadvantaged in a way, that may feel like they don't have the resources of other parts of our community, and make sure that they are being listened to and heard before we then come up with plans to say, this is what we want to do. So I think it starts, again, with leadership. To me, one of the most underrated qualities or aspects of it is listening. So it starts with listening and then building plans that the community wants and working with that community to get them done.
Obviously home to a lot of colleges. We're at one right now. Sometimes we see students graduate from these institutions and immediately leave Manchester. My question to you is, why do you think that's happening? The number one reason. And as mayor, what would you do about that to retain some of those young professionals?
Sure, so I think cost of living is probably high on that. I think it's also whether or not they want to go down and like into Boston because they're getting paid higher wages to work there. I think as mayor, when we're looking at things like bringing in the Army grant, like bringing in different types of organizations, creating a broad network of different job opportunities within the city, making sure that there are a lot of options here for people when they're graduating college to not want to move on. It's that workforce development component to it. So like when I toured Manchester Community College, and they are doing some amazing work there to prepare those students to then go to work at manufacturers right here in the city of Manchester. So I think it's working collaboratively with the private sector, with our students, to show that we have incredible opportunities here in the city, and then the mayor going out and attracting more entities to come into the city to provide those options for young kids so that they're not looking to go elsewhere. And then cost of living, of course. I mean, if it's, what, $1,750 or $2,000 a month to live here, and it's cheaper to live outside of or in the surrounding communities. People who may choose to live elsewhere is just a basic economic function of economics. So reducing the cost of living here in the city, and then making sure that we have those workforce opportunities for people to want to stay here into the future.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, and I'll do a little caveat and congratulate my wife because she just started a program at SNU. So she's one of the people who wants to stay, work, and play. Well, stay, work, and play here, here in the city of Manchester.
Awesome. So we got one more question this round, and we'll see if we can get it under the buzzer. Can you describe a time where a young or diverse voice played a role in changing your mind or perspective on an issue? And how do you plan on incorporating similar voices and allowing them a seat at the table should you become mayor?
My wife. Yeah. When we first met 6 years ago, she talked a lot about the challenges that she had when she immigrated here to the United States. So she immigrated here in 2005 from Lima, Peru, and hearing about the real difficulties that she had first coming here. She's the one that should be running for office, by the way. When she came here, she spoke no English and went into a church basement for 2 years to learn the language before she felt comfortable enough going and getting her associate's degree. And she did all the really difficult jobs all the way up the ladder until we met, and she was the finance director for the nonprofit that we were working at. But when I hear about the struggles that she had as a new person coming into this country with a language barrier and with like a job skills barrier, that she's done unbelievably well at progressing. But her life informs everything that I do. And within a diverse community like Manchester, well, certainly in my household, I don't talk until she tells me to, but but within a diverse community, that's what informs my opinion of how I think we can better address some of the challenges that people in this community may feel. First thing we have to do is listen and understand and try and absorb what the concerns of people are, and then grow from there. So the answer to your question is my wife.
Awesome. Nailed it. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Nailed the time.
young professionals who are holding this great event. And thank you to you all for being here tonight and giving up a beautiful summer evening to talk about the future of Manchester. And when I think about the future of Manchester, from where I sit, it all comes down to our ability to attract and retain more young people here. The young people that we need to fill the jobs that we have, so many of which are open, the young people that our nonprofits need, that our other civic institutions need, to really fill all of the roles that are needed to pick up the slack that government can't, and frankly, probably shouldn't be doing. Now, some of you know me, as Jay alluded, Stay Work Play. I am the executive director of that nonprofit organization, which seeks to attract and retain more young people here. Some of you know me as the alderman from Ward 2, and in both of those roles, I really have sought to make Manchester, a better place for young people to live and stay. It's something I did even before getting into this particular job and this particular civic role as both the founder of Bike Manchester and as the author of An Insider's Guide to Manchester, which my friend Emmett has a copy of right here. So I'm happy to talk about all of the challenges facing young people here in Manchester today, as well as a number of other challenges that we all face here in the city.
Awesome, thank you. So, to start, what specific actions would you as mayor take to expand our city's housing and rent supply and increase affordability for young professionals?
Well, housing costs are the #1 issue, facing young people in Manchester. I think it's both on the rental side and the homeownership side that we need to be looking. I think that, excuse me one second, can I have a bottle of water, please?
I was just grabbing one for you.
Thank you. So I think a number of issues that we need to look at. One is zoning. Right now it is sometimes very difficult, if not illegal, to build multifamily housing in so many large swaths here in Manchester. That needs to be looked at, as do some kind of, these arbitrary rules that we put on housing development, like saying that you have to have X number of parking spaces, for a development, or you need to have X number of frontage or X number of setbacks. These are rules that were created, at a time when perhaps they were needed, but times have changed and we need to adapt those rules with us. I think we do need to be looking at underutilized properties all across the city. Certainly city-owned properties that could be better used as housing. They're not fulfilling their original functions. And looking at commercial properties all across the city and making it easier to turn those properties, which are seeing 10%, double-digit vacancy rates, making it easier to put housing in those as well. Because our rental housing rate right now is 0.6% vacancy. And that's just, until we fix that, it is a supply and demand issue. Jay's right about that. We just need more housing. And until we have it, demand is going to outstrip supply, and those rents are going to keep going up, and the home prices of starter homes, if you can even find them, are going to keep going up.
How are you thinking about the future of Manchester in regards to climate? And what policy proposals would you be prepared to implement should you become mayor?
Sure. Well, I was thinking about climate just this morning when we were getting this deluge of rain coming down, and I was, peeking down into my basement about every 20 minutes, wondering if the sump pump was going to be able to keep up. Thankfully, it did. But we're seeing these. This is just one example of seeing these, massive kind of formerly once-in-a-century storms coming about, once a decade, and once, every 25-year storms coming about, every once a year. It's our infrastructure here, particularly our sewer infrastructure, is more than 100 years old. It just can't keep up. So we need more resilient infrastructure. And we're starting on that path, but we need a lot more. I think we need to, the city government of Manchester can't solve the climate crisis of this planet, but we can do our part. Part of that, I think, is focusing on renewable energy. There's a new community power program here in New Hampshire that allows communities to come together and aggregate, buying power supply on the private market, both at a cheaper cost than what you find for the, say, Eversource default rate, and the ability to choose renewable options as well, that I think can have an effect there. I think there are things that we can do on the recycling side. The city, I'd like to see us get back to full recycling here in the city and be able to add compost pickup as well. That's something that we can reduce our landfill usage, which reduces our tipping fees, and better for the environment all the way around. So there are a number of things that we can do to address environment and climate here in the city.
Thank you. Our little one back there, very concerned about climate.
Well, the little ones are going to be the ones inheriting it all. They should be. So,
next question, it's on rail. It's obviously a lot of discussion about that. What's your stance on rail and why?
Well, like 75% of New Hampshire residents, I am in support of bringing passenger rail up from Boston, to Manchester Airport, to downtown Manchester. as well. But look, the political reality is right now is that the Republican-controlled Executive Council has shot this down. They're not even willing to accept federal funds, to get a firm cost on what it might look like. So, it's a non-starter for right now. We can talk again about that in 2025 if the makeup of the Executive Council changes. But I'm not one to wait for the Executive Council, the legislature, or the governor to do anything to come solve Manchester's problems. So I think one thing we can do right now, starting today, and certainly when I'm mayor in January, is to focus on making Manchester rail ready. And that means really having a full multimodal approach to transportation in the city, to be able to flesh out our bicycle infrastructure, our walking, our pedestrian infrastructure, to make it easy so that when rail does eventually come, we're ready for it.
So the year's 2033. There's a splashy article on the front page of the paper, and it's about Manchester. What does that headline say?
It says, Manchester, one of America's great mid-sized American cities.
How did we get there?
We got there by attracting and retaining the young people that we need. We did that by creating housing, thousands more units. We did by creating a more vibrant downtown. The people want to come in, spend money, spend their entertainment hours in. We did it by connecting people, by giving them the relationships they want with friends, a great dating scene, and a fun, vibrant place to be, full of public art and other amenities that make people not just want to come for an afternoon or an evening, but that want to stick around for a lifetime. We do it with great schools that they want to send their kids to. We do it with great residential properties, an affordable place to live and have a great quality of life.
And our final question for you tonight, Will, there are a number of colleges and universities located within Manchester. We're obviously located at one tonight. How do you plan to collaborate with these local educational institutions to ensure that the skill set of young professionals in the city are aligned with the needs of the current job market and future job market?
Well, I think it's a shame right now, and I look at it through my stay, work, play lens of being able to keep young people here and to utilize the knowledge that's on all of these campuses across the city. Because Manchester, we are the biggest college town in New Hampshire. I know it doesn't feel like that because we don't have, it's not like Durham where we have UNH right in the middle. But scattered across the city, there are more college students here at any given time than anywhere else in New Hampshire. And we have a lot of talent that supports those, not just with students, but with faculty and staff as well. So I think, back in the day, and when I say that, I mean like 10, 15 years ago, there actually used to be a consortium of higher education institutions here in the city that would meet regularly, and that their mission really was to work collaboratively together among themselves, yes, but how can they better contribute to the city? Because right now we have a lot of talent sitting on the sidelines. There are a lot of PhDs, a lot of highly educated people on this campus and elsewhere across the city that we're not taking advantage of to really look at and make progress on a lot of the challenges that we face here in the city. So I hate to see that. So I would bring them all together, meet regularly, and figure out a plan how we can best utilize that expertise.
Awesome, thank you. How much time?
How much do we have time?
Yeah.
Want to go a bonus question?
Yep.
Within your slot?
Let's see here.
For all the marbles, Will.
Okay.
Bring it on.
As noted in a report by the U.S. Surgeon General, young people today are struggling with an, quote, epidemic of loneliness and belonging. What are some steps that you would take to address this as mayor?
It's all about connection. It's all about connecting people. This is something that at Stay, Work, Play we've been focused on for the past several years, the loneliness epidemic, and it is an epidemic that plays out. It's sad, if you don't have friends, right, or somebody to hang out with after work or watch the game with on Sunday or go to yoga with on Saturday. But it's a problem for employers not being able to retain employees if their employees don't have any connections to the city, if they're not rooted. So that really comes down to relationships and friendships, and dating certainly is part of it too. But we need, as a city, to be focused on, and employers, and really I would say all of us, have a responsibility of connecting people that we know to the city, to each other, to local nonprofits, to volunteer, to whether it's church, find a church home if that's your thing, a basketball league, join the book club, go to the outdoor movies. I think we need to do a lot more to make our public spaces more inviting, more walkable, so that people can meet organically as well. But we all have a responsibility. It's not just going to happen unless we create the conditions to make it happen. And it's those loose ties that really tie people to a place and can meet, I should say, really get that sense of community and sense of place, that make people want to put down roots and create that emotional attachment. You know, that when another, maybe a better job offer comes along or some other reason to leave, you think about it and say, no, I have all these friendships here. I'm connected to this nonprofit. I have my blood, sweat, and tears here. I'm sticking around. That's what we need to do.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Well, if we have a few extra seconds.
Yep.
Yeah, your 15 minutes is to do what you wish with.
All right. Well, I don't have too much more. I just want to say that I know we weren't able to talk about every single topic tonight, and didn't even get to touch on homelessness or public schools or public safety or some of the other major pressing issues facing Manchester. So, and I certainly don't have time to go into it right now. However, I would encourage everyone here to go to my website at electwillstewart.com, where you can go to my priorities page and see bulleted detailed plans on each of those topic areas and how I would address those. You can also sign up to get involved and join our People Powered campaign. So with that, I thank you all for your time and attention here tonight. And if you've liked what you've heard, I ask for your votes on the primary on September 19th. Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
All right, our next candidate is Alderman June Trisciani, as I give her some time to make her way around the room. Yeah, I like it.
All right, we'll let you start with your opening 2 minutes.
First up, thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you to the Chamber and the young professionals. I've enjoyed seeing your growth as an organization coming out of COVID, and I'm really appreciative that you're able to pull these events together for us now. Just a little bit of my background in history. I'm born and raised in Manchester. You've got all that by now. I actually started public service back in 2008 when I first joined the Heritage Commission in the city. I served an 8-year term on the Heritage Commission, took a little break, and realized that I was a little antsy and needed to get involved again. So at that point, I started my time on the planning board, which ultimately led to me being chair of the planning board. During COVID, I was kind of watching board meetings and a lot more attentive to what was happening, and was initially frustrated because it felt like our city leaders were letting us down and forgetting about those of us that live in the city. So that kind of spurred the intent and the desire to run for alderman at large. Prior to that in my career life, I have been a public school teacher in Manchester. I've served in the corporate sector as a software executive running very large, diverse, and worldwide teams. And since 2008, I've been a small business owner in the city. So I really bring to the city not only my knowledge of the city and how it works, but also all of my experience in my various careers. As some of you are starting in your careers, know that there's multiple others that you will do as time goes on, and that's great. So bringing all of that to the mayor's office in Manchester to be able to lead the team, work together, and keep us moving in the forward direction that we're going now.
Thank you, June. So to start, with young professionals, what are some barriers that prevent them from becoming more engaged in local civic and community activities? And as mayor, how would you address those barriers?
I think the biggest barrier, we don't come out and tell you what's out there. There's not a lot of ties together between the city and the young professionals. I'm happy to say that paying attention to boards and commissions, when I was on the planning board, we did bring some new young professionals onto the planning board who are still there today. I appreciate that. Carrie might be a product of me sending a text to the young professionals saying, we need help on the fire commission. Who do you have? We've got to start engaging young professionals, and we've got to work with you so that you understand what the boards and commissions are. Some of them are heavier lift than others, but it's a great way to get involved, it's a great way to learn, and it's a great way to make a difference in your community. And we, as part of the city and also working with the chamber and with the young professional board, we have to do a better job of letting you know what's out there and what skill sets are required and how do we get you more involved. And it's, our young professionals, it's basically our younger generation, we've got to make them more diverse as well.
So a challenge that I think everyone's aware of that YPs are facing right now, especially as they're starting families, is the cost of childcare. Can you speak both availability and cost, right? I know friends who are on waiting lists, which is great. They get pregnant and it's like getting your kid in college. As mayor, how would you propose address the rising costs and availability? And have you seen any programs elsewhere that you think have worked well?
Yeah, that is a huge problem. You should not have to, and I think this is a bigger challenge than I think we all realize it is. A lot of people are saying, in the workforce, there's less women in the workforce. We don't have people to take these jobs. Well, it's because unfortunately, a lot of these younger women are stuck at home as, their childcare providers because we don't have enough childcare. We don't have the pricing for it. You're right. It shouldn't cost you $60,000 a year to have 2 children in daycare. We have to work better at the state level and at all levels to make sure that we're actually helping subsidize that a little bit. It would be great if we could get more programs available where maybe companies are working a little bit more closely with childcare. We have some tax credits. Again, they're not enough to help us with what we need. And that is a barrier to employment for a lot of people out there. So I think it's working with employers. I have yet to see a program that seems to be running successfully that's solving that challenge, but it's something that we definitely need to look at. And I think also, again, bringing the younger generation to the table is where we need that help solving these problems. We need the people with first-hand experience. We need to be able to work together, and we need to be able to bring those ideas to the table to try to solve it.
Thank you. All right, this is a dense one here. So what aspect of being one of the 21 awardees of the Build Back Better Regional Challenge excites you the most? And as mayor, how would you personally plan to leverage the $44 million that the city of Manchester was awarded to further enhance economic growth and development in the city?
That's a great question. I think we're seeing it today already with a lot of the biotech that's coming into the mill yard. Growing up in Manchester, I've kind of seen the fluctuation of the mill yard from time. I mean, think about it. Many, many years ago, we were the textile hub. And then we kind of fell into a little bit of a rut down there, and then we started picking up again. And today, we are growing human tissue in our mill yard. I mean, that is something that if you go back to thinking that, the kids that were working in the mills, my grandparents and my parents working in the mills, with shoe factories and textile factories, and today we're growing human tissue. So I think the trajectory of it and what we're doing is great. I think what I'm most excited about the grant is the ties that we're making. You had asked a question earlier about getting the colleges more involved. The ties we're making with the various colleges in the city. So being a college town is really helpful for that because we're able to hopefully, if we can get the housing part sorted, we're able to take students, the high school students that maybe aren't ready to go to college or want to start their career, we'll be able to take the college students at all levels and give them jobs in the mill yard and keep them in Manchester. And if we can keep our housing at pace, which is going to be the biggest challenge, we've got the jobs, we don't have the housing. We shouldn't be expecting you to have 3 or 4 roommates to be able to live in our city. So we've got to work all of those challenges out. But I think the way we've got the grant structured right now, and with the help of Army and with the help of things happening down in the mill yard, we're in a really great spot to keep that going. As mayor, my job is going to be really to make sure that we're keeping those connections, keeping those ties, and continue to use that money the best way possible, and keep building positive things.
Can you just speak to a little bit of how you're uniquely qualified to navigate difficult situations as mayor, and what you would do to kind of keep our city moving forward as opposed to accepting the status quo?
Great question. So when I mentioned I taught public high school, when I taught in Manchester High School, I probably should have said I taught high school. So there's very little you can throw at me that's even going to affect me. High school kids can be your toughest audience. I think part of it is in my, as a teacher, in my software life, running very diverse, very large worldwide teams, and also in my life as a small business owner, dealing with a lot of different contractors and clients. I think that's given me the temperament over time and the knowledge over time to be able to handle pretty much any difficult situation. And it usually comes down to having the conversation, facing the challenge head on, and coming up with a solution that works for everybody. As far as keeping Manchester where we are today, that's not an option. And my goal is to keep everybody more involved, bring more people to the table, and make sure that doesn't happen. It's my work now with, I will confess, I do have some relations in the Manchester Young Professionals with keeping people engaged, keeping everybody moving. This isn't something that one person in one office can solve. This is something that's going to be about staying engaged in the community and keeping my level of engagement with the community. It's pretty high today. It's making it better. And being out in the community. As a mayor, it's not kind of sitting in an office saying, here's what we need to do. It's getting out, it's working with our business owners, it's working with the educational institutions, it's working with all of you to find out what is it you need to keep the city moving forward, and what do you want to see us doing, and working together to make that happen.
Thank you. So June, your last question. Getting to tonight's event required attendees to drive, ride, walk over to the west side of Manchester. And while downtown often dominates attention, conversation throughout the city, how would you improve the connectivity between the distinct areas and unique neighborhoods that make up Manchester?
I love that, because I think something that a lot of people forget is we do have a lot of unique communities in Manchester. Since I've been elected as Alderman at Large, I've worked very closely with a lot of the West Side communities and a lot of various community groups. And one of the things that we're trying to do is promote more of what's happening on the West Side. And there's things we have to be careful of on the West Side also. Many years ago, there was a supermarket. We have no supermarket on the West Side anymore. People have to go to Goffstown or drive over the river into Manchester to get their groceries. We don't promote there are some amazing small businesses on the West Side of Manchester. And I've also been speaking to a few developers and just looking at, what are our options to grow people in the West Side. I think also our Manchester Economic Development Office has been doing a great job of trying to promote businesses around the entire city. It's not just the West Side. It's, we've got some great businesses on the South Willow Street side. We've got a lot of new small businesses coming to the mall. So it's really kind of promoting the city as a whole, and I think the current effort for the branding is going to help us out a lot with that project as well. We have to get the message out of Manchester being a great place to live, a great place to play, and a great place to be working. So I think as mayor and working with the various departments, particularly MEDO, it's incumbent on us to make sure that we're promoting each and every businesses. We get a lot of jokes about, oh, you're at another ribbon cutting. That's celebrating a business that's starting. And as a small business owner, when I started my business, any support I got was just really nice. It's nice to know the community's behind you. It's nice to know there's people there to support you. And I think the other thing is it's incumbent on all of us and all of you in the audience, find these small businesses. Go out of your comfort zone. When you're going to breakfast, don't go to your normal place you always go to in your neighborhood. Go to another neighborhood and find a new place. So it's incumbent on us to explore as well and to find those really cool places. I know my husband and I do that frequently, and we always find some cool little spot we didn't know about. So I think it's important that we all take the initiative to do that as well and to support our other communities and learn a little bit more about each of the different groups that we have in Manchester.
Awesome, thank you. Tom, what do we got? Okay. Bonus question here. So, current event, earlier this week, Manchester Superintendent Gillis proposed next steps for the district's long-term facility plan to the Manchester Board of School Committee, which the committee approved, and recommendations will now be presented to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. As mayor, can you explain your position on the proposed school project?
I think my first position on this proposed school project is we need to do this. I think one of the things, we have great things happening in our schools, and we aren't very good at promoting that all of the time, but one of the things that we have done, and shame on us as a city, we let our schools fall into disrepair. So part of this project is we kind of kept letting deferred maintenance go and go and go, and now we're at a point that some of our buildings truly aren't safe. You did see something in there about Wilson Street School closing. I've been in that school. We have teachers that are running office time and social work out of closets. And there are classrooms without windows, without natural light, and these are things that we have to fix. So we do have to take this project on. I am still honestly digesting a lot of what was said. I still have a few questions that I'm looking into. I think I'd like to, part of what will happen at the board meeting is we'll have more options for classes, for questions of the consultants that we brought in, but the bottom line is we have to do something about our schools. We're in a situation that if we want world-class schools, for your children, we need to do this now, because that price tag is just going to keep getting bigger. And we also need to factor in what is maintenance so that we can keep growing our schools and keep everything moving forward with that.
Thank you, June, and you can use the rest of your remaining time to make your pitch to the audience.
Okay, I'm going to follow up with your shameless plug for boards and commissions. Like I said, and yes, I can take this time to talk more about myself. That's great, but I'm really going to make the pitch to all of you because we need you involved in our community. And like I said, nobody can do this without you. And as mayor, one of my goals will be to keep you involved, keep you engaged. And don't be surprised when you get that phone call that says, you know, I know you're interested in this. We've got a spot on this commission. We've got a spot on this board. We really need you to step up and help us. The same thing is it goes both ways. When you see things that you want to be interested in, when you see things that want to happen, we've got to have that open door and that open communication with the mayor's office and with, frankly, all of our elected officials that you're comfortable coming to us saying, hey, we want to try this. We need to continue to keep our very strong relationship with the chamber. That is our key to a lot of the businesses in the city as well. So while I am quite confident in saying that my background, my skills, my qualifications have me ready to start this job on day one, I will walk into that office and get the job done. But I need all of you behind me, and I need all of you to be there to help us and to do the work and keep us moving forward as a city. This is your city now. You're the ones that are coming into this. You're the ones that we're building the city for. So we need your advice, we need your input, and we need your work to help us with that. So thank you again for coming out tonight.
All right, sitting down like it's break time. Our next candidate, Alderman Kevin Kavanaugh. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You shut this off on me.
Sabotage.
Sabotage. No, thank you. Thank you to the young professionals and St. A's for hosting. First of all, I've got to start out. I think it's great to have this forum, but also the candidates here. I mean, Manchester's got a tough decision coming up, but you've got great, I'm glad to be a part of it, I'm proud to be a part of it, but we all have some great ideas. And the biggest thing we all agree on, I've said it many times, is we disagree on many things, but we all agree that we love Manchester. So who I am, I'm Kevin Kavanaugh, I'm born and raised in Manchester, graduated through the public school system in Manchester. My wife Carrie and I have 3 kids, they all graduated through here. And I've always had so much support throughout the city. I mean, growing up with a family, my parents were divorced, we had 5 kids, but teachers and coaches gave so much to me, and I always wanted to give back. I've coached in the city at every level. I first started when I was coaching with the Manchester Bears, I had a kid named Ryan Day, who's a quarterback and defensive back, and I was his coach, so I take credit for all of Ohio State's success. But no, I'm looking forward to this. I'm getting the yellow card, but it's just, I look forward to doing this. I think we have so many important issues and proud of the Fire Commission and the Police Commission, but really proud to have the endorsement of both the police and fire unions. And I've served for 6 years as a senator, 8 years on the Board of Aldermen, and I've earned that backing, and not just by saying it, living it and having their backs, and that's why I'm so proud of having that endorsement.
Thank you, Kevin. So we'll get started tonight with, according to Pew Research, 1 in 3 young adults ages 18 to 34 are currently living at home with their parents. What would be your solution in Manchester to allow young people the opportunity to gain and further their independence and start their lives here?
I've got 3 kids, a 25-year-old, a 22-year-old, and a 20-year-old. And 2 are at home, and I love them dearly. I love to have them there, but I can't wait to see them go. You know, and you know, but it is that question to me, and I think everything from homelessness to crime, but it comes down to housing, right? We look at homelessness, we look at affordable housing, we look at young professionals starting out. And someone told me we're out at these different forums and every night talking to people, a senior citizen said to me, what about us? What about our empty nesters that have these houses that want to sell and get on the market, but their first question is, where am I going to go? It's all about housing. I don't care where you are, it's all hitting us in the face. And I'll use my relationships that I've had, and I mean, we can have difference of opinions, but my 8 years on the board, my 6 years as a senator, I've always reached across the aisle. I don't think, I don't know if Gina Powers is here, but working up in Concord, no one's going to tell you, Kevin Kavanaugh won't work with you, won't listen to you. If you see a problem, go talk to him, let's work it out, let's fix it. And that's what I want to do. And that housing problem we have, I'll use those relationships I have. I mean, one of us is going to win this, and I think the other three will still step up and solve this, because that's what it is. That's the basic premise of what we're facing, housing. And how do we get those those places built? I just look at Arms Park, you know, a huge river walk with some multi-use housing, with maybe a huge summer concert series where people are hanging out down there, using the businesses, walking downtown, with the river walk going over the bridge so people can come to the concert and go out to dinner. That's what I want to see, and let's get builders here. We have to. If there's a stack of papers like that, let's get the city departments together. I'm not trying to fault anyone, but it's togetherness. You bring people together and get things done, right? And that's how you do it. As a coach, I've always said that. You don't win with one person, you win with the team, and that's what we have to do. Bring everyone together to do this, because I think there's some great potential for Manchester, and I can't wait to see it. I want my 3 kids to stay here. I want our house back, but that's fine. But I say that, I'm just joking. I love them having the energy of having them around. But I want them to have that opportunity. I was born and raised here and made the choice to stay here. My wife is from New Jersey. We were looking at the seacoast. We said, let's stay here. There's some great things happening, and people do want to stay. My daughter graduated from Roger Williams, and a lot of her friends had the same opinion, saying, I didn't want to move to Boston or go to Manchester. So there's great things happening. And how do we promote that and get that housing? And that's what I'll use is my relationships in the state and local connections to get that done with builders and maybe ordinance changes or to quicken the process. You know, I've talked to the Automobile Association. They said it's tough to do business in Manchester. There was one dealership that opened, it took 4 months to open. That's unacceptable. No. So I'll just use those relationships to get that quickened.
You touched a little bit on this with the Riverwalk, so good segue into our next question. In 2021, the Planning Board approved an updated version of Manchester's master plan. If you haven't read it yet, read it, it's awesome. The plan acts as a framework for ensuring that future development choices are in sync with both the community's long-term vision and residents' hopes for an improved standard of living. As mayor, what steps will you take to realize the objectives set forth in that master plan?
Well, that's one of them, right? The great segue is right, and I think a lot of that is connectivity through the city. I mean, when there's good ideas, we have to agree, right? I mean, whether you're walking, biking, or rail service, we have to look at everything. We have to do that. And the ordinances, again, the zoning that we can improve on to make those things happen, and the quality of life. I mean, I grew up being outside. I love being outside. I love biking. I like walking, hiking. I don't do it as much as I used to, and I should do it more. But you know, it's just that's who we are. That's if we can make that lifestyle better for people, to being outside and wanting to enjoy the outside and going over that river walk and going out to dinner or seeing a concert. That's how we win.
Awesome, thank you. So, what would be your plans, Kevin, as mayor, to improve public and multimodal transportation in the city? And how can we better unlock access to and from the city throughout the region?
Well, when I sat on the Transportation Committee in the State Senate, and it was very frustrating. We had the federal money coming in just to do this study, and we were ready to go. It was going all the way through the final vote. I still remember Regina Birdsell saying to me, Kevin, don't be upset. You know, we didn't have the votes. It was 3-2. Republicans, Democrats, 3-2. And it's like, come on, let's just look. This is what we want. And as a Democrat being there, working with 100 business owners that wanted to run a rail service, it's long past due that we don't have, that we need it here in Manchester, and we better look at it. Another thing I think we look at is the buses. I mean, the MTA, or even but it's the school buses, getting those electric, natural gas, anything, because the pollutants coming off that are terrible. And I think we can look at all of that. And I think one of the things I think is really cool, we're up in Detroit. This is for the presidential debate when we didn't have them here, the cycles that you can rent. I remember calling Joyce, I said, we got to look at this. These things are awesome. They're just fun to have around. And it's just, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of different options we can look at, and I think we should look at everything to help the quality of life.
As mayor, what opportunities do you see for Manchester to improve upon information sharing with residents regarding emergencies, key events, citywide initiatives, and resources?
Well, I think the communication we have with the Emergency Response Center, right? I mean, when we have anything that's going on, I think we had a great system. We have a school district for a snow day. I mean, I used to hate it at 5 o'clock in the morning when your alarm would go off saying they're canceling school, but at least you could sleep in. We have to look at all forms. I remember talking to some people when I worked for the IBW as an assistant business manager, and just a simple app that you have on your phone. I mean, you're not calling into a voice recorder to get the information of what's going on in this week or this month. Everything's instant. Let's get an app you can get on, and you can, whatever either the department you want or just click it, fix it. I think that's a great tool. So especially now with any kind of communication we can do with our phones in our hand, we should take advantage of.
All right. Given the recent $44 million investment in New Hampshire's biotech industry and the anticipated growth it could bring to the city, what specific plan would you have in place to ensure that the necessary public amenities, such as transportation, affordable housing, recreational spaces, are adequately developed and integrated to support both the industry's expansion and the overall well-being of the community?
Right, I think we've got to have that balance to make it work for everyone. And again, in the Senate, we had that. We gave the tax break to Dean Kamen when he first started that project, you know, and then getting that federal money in was really just a shot in the arm. And I remember when we had the first, you talk about that, and June hit that, how futuristic, this is crazy to me. They were growing tissues that you can use and put into your body with no rejection medicine. Dean Kamen was saying that, why don't we do something and have some kind of people mover, whatever, it's an escalator or something, or that you can hop on and move right from a parking lot right downtown. And I think that'd be awesome. The big thing was always, it's easy to say no, right? Well, the flood water from the river. But I think it's wrong for us. I think it's wrong for us to stop looking. I think we should look at every possibility to make it a better experience in the city. Because I think that's going to be transformational. I mean, 7,000 jobs coming in, and just when people see what's going on, I can't wait for that first organ gets planted. And it's going to save someone's life. I mean, the dialysis it costs this country right now, insurance companies, it's going to be incredible. And it's just, I can't wait to be a part of it. Can't wait to be a part of it, and right from Manchester, New Hampshire.
Awesome, thank you, Kevin. Time? All right, another bonus question. I think we came prepared. So, Kevin, day one as mayor, a grant, no strings attached, for $5 million appears on your desk. I know we're talking fairy tales here, but
How about 50? 50?
We'll stick with 5. And based on your experience, motivations, and vision for the city, what would you do with that money?
I know Jody was brought up, and I think the Economic Development Office is doing incredible work. I think that would be my first look to see if we could, does it all have to go to one spot?
Yeah, we'd like to, just pull all in chips on the table.
I think we have to look at that. That's part of it. We have to look at, again, housing, because I still think economic development isn't going to happen as quickly as if we have the housing. And how do we maybe, boy, you're limiting me with one, but I'd have to say the economic development. But I think we have to look at everything where we put that $5 million. But I really would like, and one of the things I would do, maybe what I'd like to do with that is have a full-time grant writer that we could have in the city and help every department and businesses that are looking to partner with the city to make it better for everyone.
Awesome, thank you, Kevin. And we'll give you the remaining rest of your time to
Do I got?
make your final pitch.
3 minutes. So no, again, just proud to be here, proud to be a part of this forum in St. A's. I mean, I grew up and, like I said, working at 19 years old. I want every kid, I didn't really get into education, maybe I'll hit that. And I had the opportunity, I went through public schools and went to work for the telephone company. We had in-house training. And with that, really, I was able to buy a house and support a family here. At 19 years old, without a college education. But I worked all I could, right? And I think that's important, that every kid that comes out of our public schools has that opportunity. Not everyone wants a 4-year education. I didn't. I loved the social part of high school, but I just didn't like the schoolwork. You know, it's just, but kids are like that. But I think every kid that comes out, whether you want to go to a 4-year school, a trade school, or right into the workforce, has that opportunity prepared to ready to go. I'd be proud of that. I think we do have to be bold with the city schools, and I think it's time for us to look at something. I mean, having our school's average age being 75 years, that's just unacceptable. I also toured right after the shutdown, Manchester Community College, and it's just great working with the business owners and what they need and adapting those plans, educational plans to the kids coming in, where those gaps are in employment. And we work firsthand with them, and one of the projects we did even with the idea of 1827, the line workers for Eversource. We had retired line workers come in to train kids how to climb a telephone pole, and once they have their certification, they have that job with Eversource. It's phenomenal. I mean, talk about getting a kid, whether you're a four-year graduate or a high school graduate, and you're gonna make some great money. And it's, again, my vision for the public school system is Manchester. I think we have to be all-encompassing, whatever every kid will ever path a kid wants to go, to make sure we prepare them and have a housing to stay here. And I mean, like I said before, I'd love to have my kids stay and have their kids here so we can watch our grandkids enjoy Manchester.
Just not your house.
No, well,
Maybe.
yeah, just a
Maybe
babysit. All right, yeah. But we also, we're daycare, so we won't have to babysit so much.
Awesome.
Awesome, thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And now Carrie for our little
Yeah,
final
some
thank you
questions.
and on the close, yeah.
All right, so now that we've heard from, let's give a round of applause for the candidates, guys. I didn't think we were going to get through all those questions, let alone have to pull the bonus questions out from the end, so great job, guys. Now that you've heard from the candidates on the issues that are important to you, don't forget to vote. The municipal primary election is on September 19th, and that will cause two of these candidates to progress to the general election on November 7th. If you have not registered to vote, or you aren't sure if you're registered, or if you're not sure of your polling location and you registered for this event tonight, keep an eye on your inbox. We'll be sending a follow-up email that will allow you to figure out your polling locations and more information on how if you're registered to vote. I think there's actually a QR code on the registration table, so if you want to scan it on your way out and find out tonight, great way to use a QR code. As a reminder, if you're looking to get more involved with Manchester Young Professionals, we have a number of volunteer positions open on all of our action teams. Come find me, Stephen, pretty much anyone in the room. We're happy to talk your ear off about it. We also have some upcoming events. Find Your Cause, if you want to save the date for this one, November 29th at the Rex Theater. Nonprofit organizations will come in and give a Shark Tank style pitch to young professionals as to why they should get involved with their nonprofit and what types of roles are open for young professionals to get involved. And our other event, 90s Trivia and Karaoke Night. I want everyone to be singing some Britney Spears at the farm on Elm Street on September 28th at 6 p.m. A big thank you to the New Hampshire Institute of Politics for hosting us, our fabulous sound people. The Manchester Young Professionals Empower Action Team, who helped pull this together, the Chamber, especially Cole, who constantly keeps us on track, like he does with the rest of the city. And of course, our 4 mayoral candidates for carving out the time to speak with us tonight. We hope tonight was informative and helpful, and we hope to see you all at the polls. Thank you guys so much. Feel free to stay in the middle and talk to us.